appreciate you guys standing by, waiting for us to get going. Obviously, we are here to address this morning's news that Ron Jans has resigned as head coach of the club and is no longer the head coach of FC Cincinnati. In front of you, on your left, is President Jeff Berding. On your right is General Manager Gerard Nijkamp. Jeff will start with an opening statement, and then we will open it up to questions. We just ask that you raise your hand and wait for the microphone, and please introduce yourself and your outlet before asking your question. Jeff.
Okay. On Thursday, late afternoon, I received a call from Major League Soccer officials sharing that a complaint had been filed by the MLS Players Association. The allegations were alarming, and we took them very seriously. Within hours, FC Cincinnati and Major League Soccer had agreed that we needed to conduct an immediate and thorough joint investigation. 2 hours later, we had a meeting with Ron Jans to ask about the allegations in the complaint. He confirmed that he had used an inappropriate racial slur. Let me be clear that racial and cultural diversity is a major part of what makes the game of soccer so special, and we place the highest priority on respecting every person involved in our game. There is absolutely no place for racism and intolerance in any form. After our conversation, we agreed that Ron would be removed from the premises so that we can conduct an independent investigation and where the players could speak their truths with respect to their experiences. On Sunday, those interviews began, and by midday yesterday, they were complete. Yesterday, mid-afternoon, I was briefed on the status of the investigation involving Ron Jans. It wasn't fully completed, but the interviews with Ron and all of the players in Bradenton, Florida, had concluded. The briefing was consistent with the confidentiality provisions of the inquiry, where players spoke in confidence, and in my briefing did not include the identification of any players. The findings concluded that this was not a single incident, but broader themes and experiences that were insensitive. Upon receiving this overview, I reviewed the findings with our general manager, Gerard Nijkamp. After hearing these initial conclusions, we knew that there was no future for Ron at our club, and he could not remain our head coach. Gerard met with Ron late in the afternoon and explained the situation, and we agreed it was best for Ron to move on. So as of last night, Ron Jans is no longer the head coach of FC Cincinnati. We place the utmost importance on a strong culture within our club, beginning in the locker room, and every person connected with FC Cincinnati, that they feel valued, respected, and trusted. Out of respect for the players, we will not be sharing any details of the investigation publicly or with members of our club. We made this commitment to our players, and we will honor it. That is the conclusion of my statement, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I guess my first question is, I'm looking over the statement by the MLS Players Association President Bob Foose, and he seems to think that this is a systemic issue within the club itself, and it doesn't just stop with Ron. What are your responses to that? I don't know if you've read the statement yourself.
I have not. I would offer that we've built our club over a very short period of time. We hatched an idea in 2015, played our first game in 2016, and were awarded an MLS bid in our third year and had the shortest transition to Major League Soccer. Last year in 2019, we're in our fifth season. And the basis of our success has been a very strong culture within our club, a culture that is very inclusive, that celebrates diversity, that is family friendly, and that is very involved in making our community a better place. I think in this particular incident, it became apparent from the investigation that there were unacceptable comments, and we immediately had a thorough investigation, and that happened swiftly. And with the findings, we acted decisively to make this change. It is certainly painful, but I'm going to defend the culture that is from our owners through every employee in this club to our players, who have been a big part of how we've built this club together, and our fans in our broader community.
Obviously, it was different circumstances last year when you guys made the change with Alan Koch, but you were preaching culture back then as well. How do you go forward making sure that you can develop that culture with the next coach?
Well, certainly we learn and get better every day. Obviously, as Gerard begins the search for a new coach, we've learned that a greater awareness to cultural norms and standards here in the U.S. are going to be enormously important. Certainly, our values need to be protected, need to be served, and that'll be a key part. I will offer that the feedback that I hear is that we've come a long way since last year, and I think we're building something under Gerard's leadership on our soccer with our team and our soccer staff and what we're doing at Milford. Something that is of a very high caliber. Certainly here, unacceptable. And again, when we learned about it, we took it seriously. I appreciate that the Players Association brought this to the league so we would be aware, so we could do this very swift investigation, give a voice to all of our players in a safe place, and now we've acted so that we can have a safe locker room and a good culture. And it's unfortunate that we're here. You don't get to pick your moments of adversity. Sometimes they find you, and then we're challenged to deal with them and not let them destroy you, but to have that adversity make you stronger. And that's what we intend to do here, Laurel.
Jeff, you mentioned theme in the statement that you put out earlier today. You said theme again. What was the problem with the theme that Ron, the pattern that he had been on with this club?
I'm not going to get into the specifics consistent with my statement, but there's no question that the findings from the players were that this was not one particular moment in time, that there were experiences and broader themes that were inappropriate and insensitive. And I'm going to just let it stay there.
So I understand that you don't want to get into the specifics, but the narrative is much different now that we're hearing from the Players Association, and you did take very serious action. Do you feel like you were lied to at the beginning, and the narrative from what you understood from the beginning until right now is it different than what happened?
When we had our initial meeting with Ron, he confirmed that he used a racial slur. He offered his context, but notwithstanding the context, we immediately agreed to launch the investigation, removed him from the team to understand exactly what happened, consistent with the very serious allegations made by the Players Association. Again, we wanted the process to play out quickly, where all the players would have an opportunity to speak in confidence to the people doing the joint investigation with Major League Soccer, and we're going to see what came out of it. And what came out was alarming, was troublesome, was not acceptable, and
goes beyond the idea that he was singing along with the song in the locker room?
yes.
As of this time yesterday, Jeff, we were led to believe that what Ron did was make a somewhat inappropriate comment, apparently in Washington, D.C. last October regarding Martin Luther King, and that he had sung along with music in the locker room. The Players Association has basically blown that up, that this is far more widespread than that, and in fact, the notion that he only used the N-word in singing along with a song is patently false. When did you make the discovery that this was far more severe than what we heard yesterday? And someone isn't quite being straight with us, and we'd appreciate it if you could fix that.
As I said in the timeline, the initial feedback that we were given from Ron on Friday night, Friday? Yes. Had his version of context, and it wasn't until I was briefed on the findings mid-afternoon yesterday when the interviews with all of our players in Bradenton and Ron were also complete, that this broader themes and more experience and other people experience what was in the locker room differently than what had been explained to us.
So Ron lied.
He offered his thoughts. I think we have a fuller appreciation now from the players, and that's why we've taken the action that he cannot be the head coach of FC Cincinnati.
Well, why do you think, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to keep going on, why do you think the players have waited so long to speak out on something like this, if it's indeed as serious as it seems to be?
We talked about that a little bit this morning. I don't have an explanation for the players who were affected here and why it didn't come forward sooner. Again, I said a minute ago, I am grateful that the Players Association did hear what the players had to say and brought it to the league, and then the league immediately brought it to us. And I certainly hope that in the future that there's some trust in the locker room, that we can talk about these issues and become better from discussion of issues as they're occurring.
Jeff, I actually was about to ask the same question Paul just did about why they waited so long. Can you give an idea of the timing of when, once you found out about these, how far back into last year do some of these incidents go? How long has this been going on, basically?
I don't have all the specifics to that because, as I noted, the players spoke in confidence and I had broader themes. But certainly we have one incident that was included in the complaint that went back to and has been identified that went back to last season.
Yeah, okay. And the other thing I'm wondering is, you talked about it a little bit, but how do you guys build or maybe rebuild the culture such that you can avoid this kind of thing going forward?
Well, certainly when you have adversity in life, you have the opportunity to learn and build from it. I think we're making a very clear statement about the values in our club and a strong statement that intolerance will never be accepted. Certainly, as I said earlier, I acknowledge that we have this global game, and having more sensitivity training and cultural awareness makes us all better. And certainly to have that be a better part of the screening process, to make sure that if we're bringing people here from other parts of the world, that they're quite aware. So whether or not there's malice or animus, just be clued in to how things are in our country to avoid missteps and hurting people. As Gerard and I have spoken, that needs to be an important part of recruitment going forward.
From some of the interviews we saw or heard after the match on Sunday, it seemed like the players were pretty impacted by just this whole investigation. How do you see things going forward, and how does this impact the players as you guys are 2 weeks away from the season?
Maybe it's good to answer this question. At this moment, it's of course very hard for everyone inside FC Cincinnati, included of course for Ron. This morning we had the conversation with the players by informing them about the resigning of Ron outside FC Cincinnati. And from there on we appoint interim head coach Johan Dema with his coaching staff, and we add Hunter Freeman, our director of scouting and recruitment, as an extra assistant coach. It will need time. We cannot solve this in a week, and I think maybe we need a season. The solving of this incredible situation, we have to need a lot of talks with each other. We have to be aware of the impact it has, what you can see now here, but also with a team, with the individuals, because we have to perform. Yes, in 2 weeks we have to have our first away game in New York against Red Bull, and hopefully we can be there fresh. But I know now that it will be very hard to be fresh at that moment. We will try to do our utmost to come there, but it needs time with a lot of talking, maybe also with some professional help to come there where we want to come. Of course, the search for a new head coach is also important. Not only that we find a quality head coach like Ron Jans on the pitch, but also an head coach who can help us off the pitch, to get a better understanding of this kind of issues what now is occur.
Gerard, you've known Ron from way back. You guys go across the ocean together. You're native countrymen. I have to ask you, as someone who's known him forever, for a very long time, if this is not just an isolated incident where he's singing along to rap music, did you not foresee any of these issues when he came to take over FC Cincinnati?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Of course, the last 72 hours, it's also a lot in my head how this came so far. Of course, I don't know specific situations because they didn't tell me. But Ron is a very open and honest person who is very open and transparent in the way how he's acting, because he wants to connect with his people around him. If you are doing that in Europe and in the Netherlands, then you know what your audience is, and that makes sometimes it easier not to think too much about what you are doing. And the context of the things he did in this country, in the locker room, outside on the pitch, it's different than if you're doing that in our environment when we are in the Netherlands. So from there on, no, I think from now I can say I'm surprised. For me, it's all about context, but I fully agree with the statement of the club and the press release that we cannot accept these kind of things.
If the Players Association had not come out after Pat's story with Ron and reacted the way it did, would we still be sitting here with the narrative that Ron was just sort of clumsy in his statements and too bad for him, great guy? And I ask this because I think it's important to this community that you're trying to develop a trust with, that they know what's really going on, not simply what you want us to know. So my question again is, would the story have come out factually and totally about Ron had the Players Association not done what it did?
The answer is yes. We acknowledge to our owners and to our staff that there were broader themes and experiences beyond the explanation that we had been initially provided. And we did share that, and we were arriving today to share that. Consistent with what we shared at 8 a.m. this morning with our people.
Jordan, what's the message to the team right now where we're just 12 days out from starting a brand new season? What's the message to them in this moment?
Yeah, again, we need a lot of conversations together, but we start this morning in the situation without our coach, Ron Jans, with a new interim situation. And I had a talk with Johan an hour ago, and it was calm in the session. And yeah, it's global soccer, it's soccer. Everyone likes at this moment to be in the pitch, to get loose of his negative energy and try to make it positive energy again. And I'm here now for this press conference, and maybe later this week for another press conference. But I will go back after that to be also part of that process and to be on the ball, because I feel that huge responsibility now to be there, not only for the coaching staff, but especially for the players, and hopefully to bring everyone together so we are ready for the first games in the new season.
We're going to have time for just a few more questions as we bring the mic around. Just a reminder, we are going to have a conference call as soon as this press conference concludes. We'll probably do 2 or 3 more questions. Everyone in the room, certainly if you have more questions, you're welcome to dial in. My staff here can provide you the information as well. Obviously, we're just on a time complaint, so we don't want to cut off questions, but we do need to go to a different situation to allow for questions for folks not here. So we'll just do 3 more questions before we start the conference call.
Jeff, do you worry about, I know you guys are trying to put this in the past, but do you worry about how damaging a situation like this can be for the FC Cincinnati brand?
Brandon, we took a call late afternoon on late last week, and within hours had an agreement to launch the joint investigation with Major League Soccer. Took it very seriously. The investigation began immediately, really. Ron was separated from the premises to allow for a free environment for the players to speak in confidence. And here we are announcing just 3 days later that Ron's no longer the head coach. I think we're saying with a strong voice, there's no place for racial intolerance, insensitivity. There's no place. There's a lot of ugly, hateful incidents going on around the world in soccer. And everyone, we must speak with a strong voice against that. There's no place. There's no place. Again, our club and what we've been about since day one, this is inconsistent, and therefore Ron's no longer the head coach. I think these actions send a message.
Any other questions? Steve?
Gerard, can you speak to the plan going forward in terms of hiring a permanent head coach, in terms of timing, the search process for you, that sort of thing? When do you expect to happen?
Yeah, I think I can repeat my words from last summer. It's not about to rush and to find quick a new replacement for Ron, but to go very professional through the process, to get the profile on the table. And the profile is even more important now than it was in the past, what I mentioned already on the pitch, but also off the pitch. So one more time, not rush. We don't feel the tension of the stress of the coming game, because we have full confidence and belief in the coaching staff we have now, especially the coaching staff is working with the roster we have now in 2020 built. So that gives us confidence, and maybe also good for the roster we have now, that they see not new people inside the coaching staff. So that's the reason we add Hunter Freeman. And from there on we will have our interviews, and also maybe at the end of the process an assessment to really get a good understanding about not only the technical and the tactical and the physical part of, but also the character and the mental aspect, and hopefully get also some insight how it is to work in another culture. It is not only when you work abroad then you have understanding about another culture. It's more than that. But I think we need also help in that process to make the good decision, because I don't have to say to this audience that the next head coach of FC Cincinnati must really become a success.
Sorry. Words got you guys into the situation. Words are not going to get you out of the situation, although you've made some strong statements here today. You're moving into a community in the West End after this season that is predominantly black. What steps, what physical steps, outside of words and statements, can you guys make to try to recapture that audience that you're trying to gain?
Well, certainly one of the things that we talked about was that I've committed to is we are going to have training and conversations among the group, outside folks coming in to help us, just to make sure that there's better, fuller cultural awareness. I want to say that I'm very proud of our FC Cincinnati Foundation and what our foundation is doing in the West End, whether it be with the West End Pride or other organizations in the West End. And we're going to continue those efforts. We have people, there was a story out this week with a video of someone who lives in the West End working on the stadium, went through the training, and now has a career in construction working on our stadium project. So I think we're going to continue all of those tangible steps to continue to try to make a difference and improve through FC Cincinnati, the community.
Our last question will come from Doc.
Hiring a coach is the most important thing an organization can do. I'm assuming you all did your due diligence with this guy, and with all due respect, I'd just like to know how you blew it so badly.
No, I don't think so that we blew it, because with Ron, we did that research very professional, and we took our time, and we created that profile, and we were all convinced that Ron was the right person on the right time. But yeah, sometimes you will be surprised. Sometimes you will be surprised because the quality of a coach is not there. There is no fit with the group inside the pitch, with the substitutes. So there are all kind of reasons why a head coach is not a right fit for a club. But from the start, we also didn't know with Ron. And with my experience, I worked with six, seven coaches. At the beginning, you never know if it is the right, 100% right fit for a club. And on the way, there's coming some things up, what you are also surprised on, because it's work of human beings. It is not like only data is leading and then we know this is a 100% fit. But the most important thing is that we get our learnings on all these situations, and from there on try to decrease the risk for the future in finding our new coach. But I cannot promise anyone here that our new head coach will be 100% touch all the boxes what is important to be a head coach for FC Cincinnati.
We'll do one more last question now with Joe, and then again, Joe will be the final question. Anwar has the conference call information in the back, so anyone in the room who wants to jump on that, Anwar has it. We'll wait a couple minutes. The call is already live for anyone who is watching, waiting for us to get on the call. So as we move upstairs, you can dial in, but Joe will be the last question before we jump on a conference.
Do you anticipate Johan will be the head coach for the duration of the season?
I spoke, I think that Johan is an interim solution. Does it take 1 week? Does it take 2 weeks? Does it take maybe the full season? I cannot say at this moment because we want to do the process in a very high professional way. So it is more to get the good guy on board than to be rushed because the season is starting in 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining us today. We're going to head upstairs, jump on the conference call. Again, Anwar has the information if anyone needs it and would like to join on and be part of that call. Thank you again for joining us.